In today's episode, we are sitting down with one of my dearest friends. Jen Jones is a professional photographer and successful entrepreneur in multiple businesses. I first met Jen off the coast of Panama in an extremely remote location, and she's the first person that exposed me to the science behind freediving. In this episode, we're going to dive into what it takes to freedive, a little bit of the ins and outs behind diving below the surface on your own breath, the dangers and safety measures that are necessary, as well as going into the challenges one might face in themselves as well as in their businesses, and how to strive to be better and more successful in life. This is a very amazing episode with an amazing human being. You guys, it's another great one for the books. You're not going to want to miss it. Welcome to the KDC Sawyer podcast. I'm your host, Katie, and today I'm sitting down with one of my dearest friends, Jen Jones. Jen is an extremely accomplished entrepreneur. She has several very successful businesses, 3 of which are in the wedding photography business, but also, or industry, but also some more commercial photography business industries as well. Jen is extremely talented. She actually flew all the way to the Canary Islands to photograph Drake and I's wedding back in 2019, which was an amazing experience. And we'll get into that a little later. Jen and I actually met off the coast of Panama in 2018. And I tell you what, it was love at first sight to me. What drew me to Jen was her sunshine and her obvious passion for the ocean. Jen, thank you so much for sitting with me today. Tell us a little bit about you and where you're tuning in from.
Oh my goodness, Katie. Such a pleasure to be here. I feel like, okay, I'm glad you know what year we met because I have no idea what year that was. But I feel like I've known you forever because we've had such special experiences every time we hang out. And I'm thrilled to be here with you today and talk about things that I don't talk about in my, everyday work life or anything else. Like my play and my passion is so, for the most part now, because I'm so heavy in the wedding industry at this moment, kind of separated, from my playtime. But I'm coming to you live from Todos Santos, which is just north of Cabo in Baja, Mexico.
I love it.
And it is definitely one of my dream locations. My husband, his whole family has migrated here since the 80s, like for winter. He's from the Pacific Northwest. That's where I live now, up in Hood River, Oregon. And I think this is like my 13th winter.
That's so many.
In Baja.
That is so many.
It's a lot. Yeah, it's totally home. I mean, it's home, which is so lucky.
Yeah. So when you all go to Todos and you're there for the winter, what are the months generally? I know it's pretty loose, things change, but what are the months and what does that look like for you and Wiley? Like, what do y'all do while you're there?
Great question. So this year is totally different. We're usually here in November, December, January, and then start heading north in February. My little sister had her second kiddo, so I went to my homelands of Florida this fall to spend time with the fam and help her out.
Shout out St. Augustine.
That's right. That's right. Florida. Yeah, you're just going to have to excuse the little gangster in me. So we also bought a house, giant accomplishment for a couple of dirtbag entrepreneurs this past spring.
Congratulations.
Thank you, love. Can't wait to have you over. We did the holidays in the Pacific Northwest and then just made it down here like a couple weeks ago.
Finally.
So I know, finally. But I'm already like, I was hopeful that this new trajectory of planning, like, okay, Florida in the fall and then holidays and then come down here. I'm like, yeah, no, water's too cold. We're going to have to come earlier. Here I am whining about being in a 3-2, but yeah.
Seriously, we've been in San Diego. So right now I'm sitting in Port Aransas, Texas, hometown. Okay. I've got my Olukai slippers on. It's pretty chilly outside, but we've been in San Diego for the first part of the year with the boat, and I had to buy a 5'4" wetsuit. And I tell you what, trying to paddle in that thing, it's like having like elastic bands at my side, and I'm like constantly resistance training. I tell you, my shoulders were destroyed after the first few days, but it's so much fun. It's so much
Oh
fun.
my gosh. A 5'4" in San Diego. California, it's too expensive. It's like too expensive to have to be in that much rubber. I don't get it. This is how my mind works.
It's hysterical. But yes, it's cold in Baja right now. That's awesome. And so you spend your time in Totos. I know you love to surf. You're a really good surfer. You also
Sweet.
do some diving, and Wiley's also in the filming business. Tell us a little bit about Wiley, what he does, and how that works for you guys.
Okay. That's a good question. So, yeah, we met probably, oh, I mean, obviously it was over 13 years ago. Both of us were young entrepreneurs. He was in the video space. I was in the photography space. We kind of fell in love in Baja, really, because he would hire me to come down here and shoot the Baja races with him. And
So
it was
cool.
all very dreamy and sweet and, all the things. And so, so for a long time, and still to this day, like we get to work together sometimes, but for the most part, our work is pretty separate. But that being said, we've always been kind of fiercely independent in the sense that like we fully support each other in like chasing our dreams. And because we were young when we got together, and we were just out there like freaking hustling, scraping by, it was just like whoever got an opportunity for a gig, it was like, oh, could we get the other one on it? And you're like, yeah, of course, you got to go. So over time we have worked, I feel like I have bent in his direction of living in the Pacific Northwest and then getting my sunshine and my water time in the winter. And he now travels a tremendous amount. He's on retainer, or maybe he's employed full time. It seems like he's employed full time.
Depending on what day it is and how we're looking at it.
I'm like, I don't know what their payroll looks like, but no, he's got a really great job, an awesome opportunity with a company called Field Ethos that's in the conservation space.
Super cool.
And he does a lot of now, like he's shooting a lot of hunting, also fishing. They're expanding into moto, I think. So he's like, he's out of his
perfect for him.
element in the hunting realm,
Yeah.
but now he's been on a lot of hunts, and then he also gets some pretty epic opportunities to go on trips that really fire him up too. So
That's so cool. Okay, so we met like I mentioned back in 2018 off the coast of Panama. And honestly, the fact that I ended up on that trip still just kind of blows my mind. I had
same.
it was serendipity. So
Mm-hmm.
Carter Andrews reached out to me and asked if I knew of a boat that would be willing to work for a group of people off of Isla Secas in Panama for like a week-long trip. So I helped him get a boat. Drake and I helped crew on the boat. I was stewarding. And we went to, I had no idea what we were getting into. I literally had no idea what we were getting into, but it turned out to be this trip off a private island that had some of the world's best spear fishermen on it. I'm Kimmy Werner, Justin Leap, Peter Coriali. I mean, just
Mark
Mark
Healy.
Healy. Like, it was insane. And my girl, Jen. So do you want to tell us a little bit? I mean, when you say that sometimes earlier on when one would get a job, the other one would grab the other, is that kind of what happened for you in that trip?
Yeah, I would say I was definitely like a real lucky add-on. It's all thanks to our buddy Pete Corial, who you mentioned, world-class spear fisherman. Like if you want to shoot your trophy fish of a lifetime or just go on a crazy fucking adventure, like go with Pete. He has like the best fish stories I've ever heard in my life.
He is a wild one.
He really is. He really is. We love him though. Heart of gold, that guy. So we had like heard of, I was like, as we had heard of his buddy Trevor Bacon, who kind of organized the whole trip, incredibly generous, invited everyone.
So nice. Super nice
And
human. Great
oh my
family.
gosh,
Kind hearts. Good people.
those people are just like incredible. And his work in conservation is epic too. Like everybody that was a part of this is just like legendary heroes, like incredible. Um, So we had like I said, we had heard about it, and then Wiley got the call, and it was like, "You guys are in," and I was like, "What? We're in? Like me too? I get to come? What?" And I knew I was like out of my depth as far as like the names that were on this trip. And yeah, I had been diving. I don't even think at this time I was really shooting fish, like maybe the early stages. I was mostly just diving. Do you
Mm-hmm.
recall? Was I
Yeah,
shooting
yeah,
fish
yeah.
at this
You were
time?
not really shooting fish, no.
No.
But in my world, like from my viewpoint, so I didn't even know freediving was a thing when I went on this trip. Like I had no idea. And these divers were like, these people were disappearing underwater for 2+ minutes at a time, hunting giant tuna off of Hannibal Bay. Like I was totally blown away by it. I just had no idea. And I remember going to you and being like, how is this possible? Like, what is happening here? I don't even know. And that's when you recommended the book that changed my life, Deep, which is a insanely good book that really breaks it
Yeah,
down. And so
James
like,
Nestor.
so you weren't, yes, and you weren't spearfishing yet at the time, but your diving was so good. And like, I mean, you and Wiley are documenting these really, really good divers as they hunt. And I mean, that's just like somebody in a league of their own, in my opinion. So continue your story. Like that's where you were in your journey. You were free diving. You were a good free diver at that time.
Well,
And
well. In comparison, I was a kook. Like let's be real. Like talking about hunting tuna with, Kimmy Werner off Hannibal Bank, like just trying to keep up with her, I was like, holy
legend.
shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know where I was at until, you're in the water with these people that have just so much time and experience, and like I thought I was comfortable in the water, and then yeah, like Justin Lee's down there for like 3 minutes shooting fish at like 150 feet, and I'm just like,
Seriously.
oh,
On his
that I didn't even know
own
that's like a
breath.
thing.
How is that even possible? Like,
Oh, nuts.
yeah, that was nuts.
So
Yeah, that
nuts.
was crazy.
So also, I mean, it wasn't just Wiley and I. Our buddy Perrin was there, who,
Another incredibly
again,
talented person. Jeez.
freaking so
I love his
talented,
work.
gorgeous work. And so
Stunning.
I honestly felt like, cool, I'm kind of off the hook because everybody here is like way more talented than I am. And so like the expectation of what I'm going to capture is like, it's, well, it's big fish because they're shooting big fish. I was going to say small fish. So yeah, I was like, okay, Jen, pinch me. I could feel like teeny tiny and that I'm undeserving to be here, but no, I got the invite. I'm here. I'm going to push myself, and, I'm looking at my watch. I was like, oh shit, I was down. You're chasing somebody who's hunting. I was like, I've never been to 80 feet before. Whoa.
Wow.
And so things were clicking, and it was like another outer worldly experience.
Do you
and then
think
you show up.
Oh, pause that, right? Do you think I think that's really interesting that you were pushing your free dive limits without even really realizing that you were pushing them? Your self-imposed limits, I think. So do you think that has something to do with the different parts of your brain processing different things? Like now that you're in work mode and you have this like goal of a capture, expand on that. I just think that that's really interesting that you were doing stuff that you'd never done before without
Yeah,
realizing it.
no, I love that. And I feel like I could riff on this whole idea of like listening to our bodies. And like, I love freediving and spearfishing because it's like, I always say you can only go as long as like your body's gonna let you. And then there's, once you learn what your body's capable of and you learn your body's signals and you realize, okay, that first like hit to take a breath is not actually that you're running out of oxygen. It's the buildup of carbon dioxide in your blood. And so the more diving that you do, the more resistance to that feeling that you get, the longer you can stay down. Pete would talk about his like chest knocks. Like he lets his chest like knock several times
That's
before he
wild.
comes up. And I've experienced that, but I'm like, okay, yeah, whoop.
Time to go up.
It's time to go up. So I
One's
would say
fine.
totally. Most of the time that I'm with Wiley and we're just on our own little trip and we're spearfishing, I'm so timid. I'm just like, oh, cool, I'm out of air, or, I'm going to go back up. But when you put yourself in work mode and you put yourself in a situation where you're going after something, that's when like the ego kind of turns on in a way that like, yes, it's positive because you can like push through some mental breaks, but we're still locked into like what our bodies are capable of and what we've trained for and what we're prepared for. And so I always joke that I would love to see the stats of like freediving incidents or accidents with men versus women, because I feel like as women, our egos are a little bit more in check in the sense that like we're going to listen to our body, and it's like, oh, we feel that first sign of needing to go breathe oxygen in our natural state of being, like we're probably going to go up. Unless you've got a camera in your hand and like, oh my gosh, maybe I'm going to get this shot,
What
then
a
maybe you're pushing past
fascinating
it a little bit,
concept.
but
Yeah. I mean, you're like my ego kicked in, and I'm like,
yeah,
oh, yeah. I mean, I get that. I get that for sure. I mean, I push my biggest boundaries for sure when my ego's here. And
right?
as a female, I think you're right. I think that our egos are less big than our male counterparts most of the time, like we're not interested, you know what I mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
need that kind of
Yeah, for a
thing.
couple girls with healthy egos, I think we can still say,
It's true.
yeah,
It's true.
because we put ourselves into some situations that if like the ego wasn't intact, then we'd probably bow out of. But I
For
think
sure.
that's what, definitely sets you apart in your line of work too. Like you're out there in a totally male dominated field. And if you didn't feel confident and didn't have like a healthy ego about that you should be there, you've earned your spot, then you wouldn't be out there giving the guys a run for their money.
I think you're so right. And I love that point. Like, and it's so important for everyone to be confident in their work, male and female. And to be able to really step up to the plate as a woman surrounded by men, you have to be able to be confident in every step you take, for sure. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
Even when you're
Yeah.
not, like you have to tune that part out of you and focus on the fact that you are ready and you are capable. That's interesting. Okay, so Isla Secas, you're diving to 80 feet. I mean, that's my max. My max is 80. And
Mine too, still.
so you haven't been back to Isla.
No, I don't go deeper than that. Like, I don't know. Maybe if I was in some super warm water and I was on like an extended free diving trip, like, yeah, I'd get tuned up and fired up and would want to like push past that. But nowadays, my free diving or my spearfishing is also like my surf time. And I love being in the ocean in all aspects, but I definitely am prioritizing waves over fish. Uh, Probably because my honey is stacking the freezer and I'm like, I don't need to be worried about being fed. He's got us.
Yeah, that's a big one.
It
Like
is.
when you have food in the freezer, there's no point. But also, I just like being under the water. I love being under the
Totally.
water. There's nothing more peaceful
Totally.
to me. But I think like, it's hard to believe, especially when I live my life like all the time around the water, but I haven't gotten the time in the water either in so long. Like when we were in the Canary Islands, we were training. We had a lot of downtime, especially with the pandemic, right? So we were training a
Gosh,
lot. And then
your
we went
life
on our
then.
honeymoon for a couple weeks to somewhere warm in the Indian Ocean. And that was
Uh-huh,
amazing. And that was
uh-huh.
definitely the best diving I've ever done. No doubt about it, despite the fact that did I tell you about that squeeze I got?
Ooh,
Yeah, it
no,
sucked. It was bad. So we
no.
went over to
Your
Tanzania.
ego was working.
It
You were
was.
competing with your husband.
I was. You're calling me out so accurately. So she knows me so well. So, yeah. So we went over to Tanzania, the island of Zanzibar, to hunt dogtooth tuna. And we really wanted to
Insane.
shoot some dogtooth tuna. It was amazing and gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. And we were diving deep and we were diving well. And then I got a squeeze right here between my eyes, like right over my nose and my forehead between my eyes. And if y'all don't know what a squeeze is, the
I
squeeze
was
is
gonna
when,
say, yeah, let's break that down.
why don't you break it down?
No, no, no. You break it down. You experienced
Have you
it.
never had one? So
No,
squeeze is
no.
like, oh God bless you, lucky girl. It might be. So a squeeze, I have like a lot of ENT issues
Mm.
in my life. I've had a lot of, like, I had to get my tonsils taken out and I have upper respiratory infections all the time. And so if y'all don't know, your ear, nose, and throat are all a nice mixture of essentially one space that's intercorrelated, right? And I don't know if the words were right there, but we're going to roll with it. So it's
Dr.
all
Katie.
connected. And if you have a buildup of pressure, so say you have some air in your system and you dive down, the atmospheric pressure of the water is going to make everything inside you smaller. But if you've got an air bubble, that's where you start having issues. The deeper you go, the more of an issue you're going to get. And it's a very sharp pain. So that's what equalizing your ears is, why you equalize your ears as you go down. Most of the time it clears stuff, but if you have some congestion or you've been flying, sometimes you get some congestion with lots of travel, that sort of thing. You're prone to getting a squeeze either in your inner ear, or sometimes you can get it under your eyes. Sometimes you can get it on your forehead between your eyes. And I got one in my forehead between my eyes. So I was like, oh no. So I kind of like leveled out, tried to like equalize it underwater, and then went back up. And I think, I had a guest, Paulo, that was telling me, I think it was Paulo in one of my episodes recently, an amazing Azorian freediver, spearfisherman. But I think he said that a lot of times it's actually when you go up that the squeeze can get really bad, which is interesting. And I hadn't realized that. But long story short, I ended up spitting up a bunch of blood in my mask and out of my nose, out of my mouth. And I was like, well, that stinks. I should definitely not do that anymore. Yeah, it was so sad. So,
I feel like
uh,
you told me this and I like just straight up blocked it out.
for
I was
like,
like,
I don't
I
blame
don't want to know
you.
that shit can happen.
No. And like I say, a bunch, it wasn't a bunch, but it
Oh,
was like thick. It was stuff that you don't mess around with, right? So when that happened, I took my mask off and there was blood in it. I was like, well, shoot. So I had to stop diving. And it made me so sad. But thankfully, we were staying at a really nice resort. And so I like just, I went on straight like vacation mode, which is something Drake is not capable of doing. He has to be doing something. Is Wiley the same way? Like he has to be
yeah,
doing something. Oh,
yeah.
and like, I mean, bless their hearts because they're so talented at everything they do. And he keeps me moving, but goodness gracious. So anyway,
I was going to say props to us for like attempting to keep up. That's how I feel. I've let it go. I'm like, cool. I don't have to do all the things that you're doing.
my
I can
FOMO is way
chill.
better. It's way
It's
better.
fine,
It's way better.
right?
But
We're so
there it was pretty
mature.
significant because I told him, he was like, do you want me to stop diving? And I was like, absolutely not. Like, we came all this way. Neither of us had gotten a dog tooth yet. Thankfully, I had gotten some really good dives in. I'd got a couple jobbies, which was really exciting, job fish, and they were so good. And that was fun. And so Drake kept diving in. I think there were like 3 more days left of the spearfishing trip. So he kept diving and he got a really nice dog tooth. And I was only like a little jealous, like 100% jealous. But I do feel really good about it now. And I'm really proud of him. It was a really cool fish, and he dove really, really well too. So yeah, that's what
Uh,
happened. But have you ever had what is your experience? Didn't you go to get free dive like instructor certified a few years ago?
this is a good segue because we're talking about freediving accidents.
Mm.
One of which I, knock on wood, have not had myself, but I witnessed Wiley. Um,
Oh, how scary. I think that's way worse. Mm.
yeah, yeah. Uh, so maybe I'll tell that story.
Yeah, go for it. Might as well. My
Again, I'm
mom listens to this
gonna.
podcast. She's going to be like, "Oh my gosh, another one where I don't ever want you to go spearfishing again."
Well, I honestly, like, this is the beautiful thing about this sport is if we are in check and we're listening to our bodies and we are diving in partnership with other people who are aware of safety and who are going to look out for us and know how to look out for us, then we're fine. We're good. It's super safe. Um, we were out off Mag Bay. This is a few years ago, and we usually go out there for like 3 or 4 days in a row, which is great because I'm like, cool, we get warmed up. I actually, get to feel
Yeah.
like what it is to remember to be able to hold my breath underwater. But in the mornings, I'm like, we're out there at dark, and it's usually me and Wiley and like one or two other dudes, right? And all the boys are chomping at the bit and they're like suiting up in the dark. And I'm just like, cool, you guys can go and jump in the cold water and let me know if there's fish down there. And then if there are, then I'll suit up and I'll join you, kind of thing.
That's so
uh,
funny. I'm like the first one in every time. I'm like, there's going to be a fish here and it's mine.
That is hilarious. I love it. I love it. You know what? If the water was warm, I think I would probably be more fired up. But like your girl is she's not a cold water girl.
I
I
get
I just
that.
really struggle with it. I struggle. So anyways, Wiley and then a friend of ours, incredible athlete, had been diving for a couple years, just like coming along with trips and with us was like pushing it and like probably diving deeper than me and shooting bigger fish. And I was like, fucking guys and their capabilities is so annoying. So
Mm.
I'm like, okay, cool.
Story of my
They're
life.
fine. They get out there and then they pop up and like, huge, like giant grouper. Da, da, da,
Fired
da.
up.
Yeah,
Fired.
fired up. Like there's fish here, they're huge. And so I kind of start like, all right, cool. I'm gonna start suiting up. Um, and then Wiley goes down and I didn't know how big of a fish he shot. It's his biggest fish. I'd have to, if he comes back up here, I'll ask him how big it was, send you a photo or something, but shoots this massive grouper, who then like wedges itself between two rocks. I'm
Right.
like,
Because
cool.
grouper, if y'all don't know, they live on and in the rocks on the bottom for the most part. And that's the first thing they'll do is that if you get one, if it sees you, it's going to go into the cave, it's going to get in the rocks. So you have to be really careful when you shoot to be able to get it out because that's a good way to lose your shaft, your spear gun. Continue.
All the things, all the
All the
things.
things.
So he comes up, I'm like already suiting up, but then he pops up and is like, I got one, I was like, okay. And Captain looks at me and he's like, but it's holed up. And Captain looks at me like, boys need you. You better get it. I'm like, I'm coming,
How deep is it?
Probably like 60-ish.
Yeah.
No,
Deep.
maybe not. Maybe like 75. Something between 60 and 80, I think. I wouldn't know because I did not make it into the water. Um, they're all excited. He and our buddy, they're like, okay, they're going to go get it. And I'm like, I'm suiting up. I'm just like, cool. In my mind, I'm like, they're going to wait for me. The fish is holed up. The three of us are going to be in a nice little triangle. We're going to get the fish. We're going to look out for each other. No, before I know it, my husband shoots out of the water like a rocket, a blue rocket, and is like convulsing. Dude, get the boat over to him, pull him on, like actually, he was turned around and I was ready to like pull him onto the boat, but somehow he mans himself onto the boat and gets in the ponga, which is not an easy feat. So I was like,
No,
thank God, like, you're okay.
out of the
Essentially,
water.
there's no brain damage done here. You're going to be all right. But he was blue, Katie. It was so freaking scary. And then he was done. He was done, the rest of the day. But essentially what happened is that he had gone down to try to like muscle it out of the rock. And on
Right
his
after
way
his
up,
dive that he had just done.
yeah, I mean, he was
Breathed up.
responsible and he breathed up and like he gave himself a few minutes, but he was on his way up and he was running out of air, and so he let go of the fish. And our buddy, instead of going after Wiley, who was probably wiggling to the top, went after the fish. Had someone been there to kind of help him assist to the surface, like I'm like, this is totally preventable. You look after your friend. You don't go after fuck the fish. And so after that, I was like, okay, just because somebody's a good diver, that doesn't mean shit, because we are out here, yes, enjoying ourselves, but like when we're pushing it and if we're getting good, like big fish and our egos are fired up, like we need to be looking out for each other, like first and foremost. So I got on my little safety horse and I was like, I'm going to go get Freedive certified. If our friends want to, come along on trips with us, then just me being able to confidently go over some safety things and like making sure we're using the buddy system and I wanted some clout. I was like,
Yeah. Freedive
I
instructor
want the
certified. Did you
badge.
say instructor or did
That's
you just
right.
say, yeah. Freedive instructor certified.
Oh yeah, I was gonna go get Freedive instructor certified.
Mm.
Gonna get my badge and I'm gonna teach everybody.
Yeah.
And also, like, I was feeling really passionate about just teaching folks who were intrigued by it and, maybe a little nervous. And I love the ocean so much. I was like, oh, this can be like a really empowering thing.
Yeah. A great way to
It
share this with
actually
people.
still is. Still is.
Yeah.
Yes.
And to
Yes.
me, honestly, Jen, I feel like you shared it with me. So
Oh,
thank you.
oh, that was such a special moment. I know we're digressing a little bit here, but I could not believe like who you are and what you do. I was like, what do you mean you don't get in the water?
I never got it.
What
It's
do
like,
you,
oh my gosh, they
what
never
do you
let
mean?
me. Y'all, they never let me, like we work on, I work
Oh,
on boats. It's what I do. And if the guest or the owner isn't getting in the water, I'm not getting in the water, unless there's something stuck in the prop, I'm not getting in the water, which unfortunately happens more often than I'd care to admit. But I pulled some like pink fleece pajamas out of the props in Destin recently, and I was just like, well, obviously not too recently, but and I was just like, dang, this is new. This one's new, but normally it's like fishing gear and long line stuff. But anyway, okay, so before you tell us about your journey to go get Freedive instructor certified, which is quite the journey. Let's talk. I want to hear a little bit about like what happened to Wiley. Like, why did he turn blue? Why should his dive buddy have gone after him and not the fish? Like, break that down for us a little bit.
okay. So, sheesh. I should have brushed up on my knowledge here before this, but
Right.
we're going to say that Wiley was hypoxic.
Good
He
word.
had a buildup of carbon dioxide in his blood. He was very low on oxygen, and he basically burned everything before he got to the surface. And the majority of accidents or blackouts, we'll say, happen between 15 feet of the surface, and it's like when we're coming up from air and our organs are re-expanding and everything else, just like how scuba divers can get like the bends. It's kind of the same thing that's like going on with our physiology. I didn't know that somebody could turn actually blue. I don't know why that happened. Why? I don't know. I guess like his blood vessels are like to the
Yeah,
surface. Like,
that makes
I
sense.
don't
I
know.
mean, when anyone that's asphyxiated is generally, um, when they can't breathe, turns blue, like in movies and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I've thankfully witnessed that firsthand. But yeah, like that's
The Titanic people, they were blue when they were floating there.
God,
Um,
there was obviously enough room on the door, so let's not get into the frickin' Titanic. They were cold. So not
Cool.
funny. I'm so sorry. Didn't mean to make a joke of that.
No, it's okay. I
Uh,
went there
s-
first.
so
Um,
yeah, no. So I think it's that point where if a freediver is going to black out, it generally happens between 0 to 15 feet of the surface. I think that's a
yeah.
really interesting point. And what what does somebody that's a buddy, like a dive buddy, what does a dive buddy need to be looking for? And what do they need to be prepared to do? And what's the proper way of diving with somebody? Because I honestly, like, I've dove with a handful of people, and the only person I'm ever really truly comfortable diving with is Drake, because I know he's got my back no matter what, right? And it's my back,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
So he doesn't get distracted and whatever. So let's tell us a little bit about that. Like, what does that look like? It's because you have too much carbon dioxide, you run out of oxygen. Most of the time you black out as the diver.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
what does that look like, and how does that appear to a dive buddy, and what does a dive buddy need to consistently be ready for and prepared to do?
Yeah, these are really great questions, and I think like, well, we'll get into it later, but like the sport of free diving and the sport of spearfishing is different. Like when we're hunting fish, we're typically a little further apart. We're not like right next, except for when I dive with my husband. Yes, we take turns. My husband's right next to me.
For good
Right
reason.
here, right here. Um, but if at least taking turns with drops, even if they're not right next to you, and keeping your eye on your bud. Like if you see somebody coming up and their first of all is like loss of motor control, like their kicks are just looking really sloppy, their shoulders are hunched forward, maybe their head is even down. Like these are the first signs of like, oh, they're getting tired. Um, and then as they get closer to the surface, like the real danger is if Wiley had blacked out in the water and water got on his lungs. Now we're talking serious situation with that we need oxygen. We don't have oxygen on board. Like we're fucking in Mexico on a ponga. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And so the
off
first thing a
mags,
dive buddy, yeah,
which is
we're
very
a ways
isolated.
from
Any help?
getting him to proper care. Um, but it's really important that if you see somebody
Hmm?
who's struggling is to
We're losing your phone.
underwater. Oh, it's sliding. I knew that would happen at one point. You want to protect their airway. So whether you're close enough to them and you can get over to them before they reach the surface, if you see them coming up like really sloppy, is you want to protect their airway and you want to make sure that you're keeping their freaking mouth closed. And then it also, if they pop up, and they're like convulsing, they're having like a little seizure, like they're conscious, obviously, but you also want to keep water from getting in their lungs. The amazing thing about the human body is that we can black out for like, I don't know, like
Several
between like
minutes.
5 and 10 minutes. Like it's not
That's
really like our
insane.
brains aren't, um, we're not in real danger of having brain damage, I think, until like from the 7 to 10 minute mark. So you can be out for 5 minutes and be like totally fine as long as your airway was protected.
And when you're
Um,
out, you're not breathing, like, right, Jen? Like, from what I understand, when you black out, you're generally not if you black out from lack of oxygen, you're not going to breathe until like right before it's too late. Then you take a big deep breath of air,
yeah. So
right?
that's towards the very end, you take you take like your last gulp, like the body's. And so if somebody blacks out, they're underwater and they don't have anybody to get them to the surface, regardless if they've gotten water in their lungs or if their mouths are closed, like they still have a while that their body is like their body's shutting down and functioning so minimally. Like our bodies are so miraculous, you know. So there's teeny tiny minimal functionality going down in the brain. Our brain shuts down, all of our organs shuts down, and there's a fair amount of time to get that person to the surface and to save them. But you know, you're away from your buddy. The shit is viz, or the viz is shit.
We need to
They
make a
went
sticker.
down to, yeah, they went down to like sit on the bottom at 60 feet and they blacked out and you don't know where they are and they're unconscious. Like the body's going to take a final gulp and they're going to take in water, and that's
That's
essentially
it.
like the end. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
But what typically happens, and Wiley was probably seconds from, is that when you hit the water, you're blacked out. But if your buddy's there, basically what you flip their mask up, you blow on their face and smack their cheek and tell them to breathe,
Mm-hmm.
and they come back. We come
Yeah.
back
It's
so
crazy.
quick.
That's
It's just like,
literally all you
hey,
have to do.
breathe. And it's like, oh,
Hold their head out
okay,
of the water, take the
okay.
mask off, slap them, and breathe. No,
Yeah.
not too hard.
Not too hard. Not too hard. So yeah, that's why it's so important, like protecting the airway and then making sure that if they're not breathing, you're there to tell them to breathe. And
Yeah.
scary situations are okay in a matter of seconds.
Yes. Yeah.
When you're paying attention and you're looking out for somebody.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that's why you like I don't even go snorkeling by myself anymore. Like it's why you always dive with a buddy, and it's why you need to have somebody that's got your back, that can, know what to do and also is capable of watching you correctly.
Yeah.
Because I mean, me personally, I'm sure you're the same. When I'm diving, there's always a voice in the back of my head. There's always a voice. I try so hard to turn it off when I know when I'm comfortable and when I'm in a safe space. And sometimes I can like really turn that volume down, but there's always a voice that's like, is this too much? This is too much. I feel like this is too much. Are we too deep? We're probably too deep. You probably don't need to sit on the sand. What about the stingrays? There's probably a stingray. You should be careful. And then I'm like, Steve Irwin, like that's what's going through my mind, which is exactly what's not supposed to be going through my mind, like talk a little bit about like the mental aspects of free diving. And, we said something about breathing up. I said something about taking turns with a dive buddy. To me, oftentimes with Drake and I, it works out that like, the dive's about as long as the breathe up of the other person. So it works to take turns as we do like a bottom drift or whatever it might be. But I want to hear you explain to our listeners a little bit what a breathe up is, and what you're supposed to do mentally during your breathe up and during your dive, and why it's such a meditative process if done correctly, not like I was just saying.
Totally. So what we're doing in a breathe up, and I think the rule of thumb, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the rule of thumb is that you want to breathe up for twice as long as you're planning to dive. So if you're planning to do a 1 minute dive, then your breathe up should be 2 minutes. You're laying at the surface, you're chilling, you're floating at the surface, and you are
Floating.
in your snorkel, of course. You're not like on your back. I don't know how elementary we're going here.
You're doing a great job.
Thanks so much. And you are breathing in for 3 seconds. You're breathing out for 10 seconds. So what this is doing, it is filling your blood with oxygen You're feeling, yeah, with oxygen rich blood. And additionally, the longer exhale is to slow down your heart rate. So, and also in this time, yeah, like you said, it's totally a meditation. You've got kind of this count going on. You're like, I'm filling myself with so much oxygen and I'm chilling. I'm getting my heart rate really low. And what this does is set you up for great success for your dive, you know. We won't talk about the mental aspect. You know, sometimes you go for a dive and you're like, Gah! I like ended up kind of sideways and I just blew that whole breathe up because I'm like all disoriented and
Yeah.
it was just like a shitty entrance.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Or the amount of times, like I have arachnophobia, and I like I really think spiders are so cool, right? But like from a distance, like you do you over there. And I don't kill them. I have gotten to the point where I'll like put a jar. I'm totally getting on a segue here, but just bear
Same
with me.
page.
So,
No, I love
like
it. I can't wait for the water spider story.
So yeah, I have like this fear, right? And crabs and lobster also kind
Oh,
of like make me like just there's a similarity there. Like I
the
still
legs.
yeah, it's the way they move and their legs. Exactly. And I still like will go noodling for stone crab and I'll still pull lobster out of their den, but there is something there that's cringy for me, like for sure. But when we were in the Canaries, where the water's pretty damn cold, by the way. When we were, so when we were in the Canaries, they have these spider crabs there, and they're not very big. They're like maybe like this big with their legs included, right? So you guys, I'm like the size
Okay.
of maybe a little like 2 grapefruits tall, right? And their bodies are little and round, and they look like spiders. They like have these like long spider legs, right? And they're not very common, and they just sit on the rocks and they don't do anything. I'm sure they do something, but they don't do anything when you see them. And like the amount of times that I have breathed up and focused and gotten myself in that meditative state and like done my dive perfectly, and I lay down on the rock and I start to look around and there's a spider crab. And it's just like, well, shoot. Now I have to go back up and do it again because all of like my whole
Your
body
heart
just
rate is like,
tensed. Yeah, everything just tensed. I just used up like at least 60% of my oxygen. Explain that. Explain about how like, and I know you were about to, but like the way your organs use oxygen to function, obviously, and your muscles, and the importance of being relaxed and what that does to oxygen volumes.
yeah. Well, we'll see how scientific I can get here. I
You're
really
doing so good. Yeah. And
should have studied. I didn't know how hard this was going to be. Uh,
you're
let me
welcome.
pull some answers out for you here. Well, we do know that the deeper we go, the more compressed our organs get, and the actual less oxygen we need to stay functioning.
Which is
Which is
crazy.
like it's for that to me. I'm like, yeah, we're supposed to be under the water. That's what
It
that
makes
tells me.
sense. Yeah.
I'm just like, yeah, we were created to be able to exist at least for some amount of time under
Below the
the sea,
surface.
man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, below the surface. We are
Under the sea.
mermaids after all. Okay, so the deeper we get, the less oxygen we need to continue functioning because of the compression around our organs. But and also like the faster our heart is beating, just like if we're sprinting and our heart's like pounding, we're super winded because we're just using up our oxygen. And the same thing happens when we're underwater. Like if you see a fish or, a fish you don't want to see, and we get excited, then our heart starts beating faster and we start burning the oxygen quicker. And therefore we have less time underwater. Right?
Yeah,
Makes sense?
exactly. So good. You did so good.
So good. Ah,
And like to the point, like also so on that, to add to that, like your brain, your cognitive function obviously needs oxygen to work, right? And
totally.
so the more you think and the more you're active in your brain space, in your thought processing, the more oxygen you're actually utilizing. So, to the point where like professional freedivers, people that are really just competing along a weighted rope to see how deep they can go and then coming back up to the surface, that's what they do. They will actually close their eyes to help reduce the amount of cognitive processing their brain is doing, which is just blows my mind. Like, I don't know why you would ever want to get in the water and close your eyes, because that's why I want to be in there, is to see a whole new world, right? So that's Aladdin, my bad. But anyway, so I was thinking of Little Mermaid. But so yeah, so the amount your brain works dictates how much oxygen you are using. And like me personally, when I've been in my like good spearfishing hunting modes, like in
Mm.
season, I've been diving a lot. When I dive down and I see a fish like a tuna, I have the one specific memory of diving out of Cabo and seeing a handful of yellowfin that were a good sized tuna. It's hard to tell when you're underwater, but they were good sized tuna, and I was at about 50 feet deep, and it was a really incredible experience. We were chumming from the surface, and it was like suddenly, you can always tell, like, even if you can't see down there, if you can't see that deep, you can see the like piece of squid, right, drifting down. And if bait fish are getting it, it kind of like wiggles and then disappears, right? But when I always think of Dumbledore's Deluminator, like when it just winks out, that's when you know that it's a tuna. Like, that is, I just, so I'm breathing up, I'm in the meditative state. All I'm focusing on is this chunk of squid, right? And I see it disappear, and I don't even think. I just take my deep breath and I dive down, and I have this incredible memory of being about 50 foot deep, and I have probably anywhere from 4 to 7 tuna around me, but you guys, I don't even know how many, because I'm so, like, my brain is so turned off to be down there, and it felt so good. I can still feel it. Like, it felt so right. And I am setting myself up, like, these tuna, they're so quick. Yellowfin are so quick. And they just like speed up and eat the chum, the squid, whatever it is. And then they stop for like a second, right? And then they swim away. And then they come back, they're slow, they speed up, they eat it, they stop for a second, then they swim away. So I like process that. This is the first time I've seen yellowfin underwater, right? I process that, and then I point my spear gun at a piece of squid, right? And this nice yellowfin just comes up and whoom, like stops for a second. I shoot, my gun malfunctions and doesn't shoot. Tuna goes away. It would have been an epic shot, an epic fish attached to a float line. I went up to the surface, and I was with Drake and our good friend Ricardo, who's no longer in Baja, but he was with Spearfish Baja for a long time. I just really, really good friend of ours. And he was like, "What happened?" And I'm just like euphoric. I am so
Oh.
stoked. And they're like, "What happened?" Like the float line's not moving. My buoy's not moving. Like, why are you so excited? And I'm like, tuna, like, so. And they're like, "I need you to tell us what happened." And I'm like, my gun malfunctioned. And they're like, "Why are you so happy?" Like, I'm just stoked on life, because I had never experienced anything like that. I had never seen these fish like, I'd seen so many tuna by this point in time, right? But I had never seen them hunting underwater at like 50
Mm.
foot and swimming in the way
Mm.
they looked. And then the fact that, like, going back, and the whole reason why I'm telling the story is, like, going back and revisiting the story, it's incredible to me how many details I just don't know. Like, there's so many things that I just didn't even absorb. And I think it's because my brain was in that meditative state where I am like functioning at bare minimum to, as a hunter, to be successful and survive, right? And I think that moment is really what, like, just like got me so into hunting, because I was connecting to this very, very, very primal part of myself that
Mm-hmm.
was, and I didn't even care that it wasn't successful, like it's crazy. I know it would have been if my gun would have fired, and I'm fine with that. But like, it was just like, I just felt so connected to this like ancestral primal part of myself. Have you ever felt anything like that? Like what's your take on it?
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you or kind of make the comment like how trippy is it how time passes when we're underwater?
Oh, it's a totally
It's
different
like
experience.
we've been in the water for like 10 hours, like whatever it is. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
I've been counting I'm like, up for 2 minutes, down for 1 minute, whatever it is. I'm like,
How
how
has
many
that
times
made
have we
10
done
hours?
that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then my
It's
body at the end of the day is just, it's tired in a way that I don't experience any other way. Like the fatigue is completely different than any other fatigue I have ever felt.
Yeah, totally. Totally. But to your question, I would say the closest that like what kind of picture was coming into my mind when you were telling your story, is the same feeling that I feel like I don't want to say I only get when we're diving in blue water, but to be out in the depths, like to be in several 100 feet of water where the high spot is, 150, but we're only dropping down to like 30 to 50 feet because we're hunting wahoo or tuna or
Mm.
whatever it is. To be in this zone where you're getting down to this like, random, we're not diving on lines, you're just looking at your watch to see where you're at, to feel like your buoyancy,
In the
um,
middle of nowhere blue water.
in the middle of fucking nowhere. And you're hoping a giant fish comes out of nowhere. That's the goal.
Yeah.
And it
Oh my gosh,
is
the amount of time. Talk about the 10
the,
hours.
I mean, yeah, the amount of time, but also like the place you have to go into your mind to like want to hang out there for as long as you can. And I remember like I pretty much learned how to spearfish by diving with Pete. And I would just watch him and
Wow, like to be able to
I
say that.
watch, I know, ridiculous,
Yeah.
ridiculous. But Pete he always checks behind him. And so I would never check behind myself when I'm diving and, shooting Pete or whatever. And I just thought like, oh, he's just like looking for fish behind him, which he probably is. But when I'm down there and I've got a gun in my hand and I'm hoping, a fish that I want to eat is swimming by, I'm looking behind me. But when I look behind I don't know why, Katie, I get so scared. I like freak myself out because I'm like, oh, what if something's behind? It's so fucked. I don't know why it creeps me out, but anyways,
And then your brain uses oxygen.
and then your brain's burning oxygen. Yeah. But I would say to get in this kind of pattern with a buddy to where you're just out in blue water, you're in the fucking depths, you can't see the bottom, you don't really see anything except for blue. And it's just
Mm.
calm and you're quiet and it's just like, it is life, right? And
Meditative.
you're like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so meditative because you can't fucking think about anything. You need to be
No.
concentrating and
And ready to move like in a split second. Like
yeah,
that's the thing is you have to, it's interesting because there's oftentimes literally nothing but blue, and then the way the sun like dances through the water,
yeah,
which I
you're
just love to
watching like
watch.
teeny tiny little plankton like
Exactly.
sparkle,
And
basically. You're just
then
watching glitter.
yes, which I love. Or like,
Yeah.
have you ever been through, oh wait, hold on. Well, actually, yeah. Have you ever been like through a feeding frenzy and like for example, Drake proposed to me when we were hunting for tuna off the coast of Costa Rica, and we were
Proposed.
the spinner
Proposed.
dolphin. He
Porpoise?
porposed because
Purpose.
we were
Thank
looking
you,
at
dear
for
God.
the porpoise, right? The spinner
Yes,
dolphin.
yes, yes, yes.
They feed with the yellowfin over there, and you can see the spinners from the surface, and the yellowfin are corralling from the bottom. And we were trying. We were not successful in our endeavors that day, but I do remember it was just the
Hectic
craziest thing
diving.
to be. Yeah, that's some serious crazy diving, but to be going through where the bait ball had just been and the amount of scales in the water. And I was just like,
Mm.
wow, this is like a galaxy. This is incredible. And it's kind of morbid, like all these bait fish just got eaten and their scales are floating all over the place. But it was just like so beautiful. It was so beautiful. And yeah, so exactly. You have to be, but when you're blue water drifting, looking for a fish, like for wahoo or chumming for yellowfin or whatever it might be, you are seriously like not seeing anything except for the deep blue, but simultaneously needing to be extremely vigilant for that moment where you do get that sight of a wahoo coming in, and so that you can respond appropriately so that you increase your chance of success. Because if you look at that wahoo, the wahoo's going to leave. Like there's no chance that wahoo's going to come in if you look at it, right? So you have to like see it and quickly look away, and in that split second of assessment of what that wahoo was doing, you have to respond appropriately to get yourself to where you might be able to take a shot on it. And yeah, I mean, when you're drifting for that long, it's just amazing how much you're thinking about solely that one fish, and by not
Totally.
thinking at all.
By not thinking at all. Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that your brain, that you can go to that place like easier in blue water, or can you still tap into that when you see the bottom and you're like a little bit more active because you're spotting fish and you're going after a particular thing?
I think that I tap into it a lot better in blue water. Um, my like wahoo hunting is one of my favorite things to do. It's just, I don't know, there's something so like primal about it. And the like reef fishing or like reef diving, whether it be on rocks, when we say reef, we're not talking about just coral reef, like any type of bottom,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
so reef diving, to me, I feel like I'm thinking a lot more actively.
hmm
And I also am like, I feel like the bottom sets limitations for me mentally. Do you feel that way?
I feel like I die. Well, I don't know. There's something about, again, like the meditative state of just like dropping, and also in blue water, you're not trying to go to the bottom. And if you like 30 feet's a great place to be.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh, you're taking a little bit more shallow dives. You're not burning all your oxygen on the way down, and then you get to chill for longer. But I do like the, I guess, athletic component of reef diving, because you can see the bottom and you do want to get down there most of the time. And so,
And see
yeah,
what's under that rock.
and so the ego kicks in.
Hmm.
The ego kicks in, and then I feel like can be a better diver, because I get competitive with myself, you know?
Yeah, I love
It's
that
like
for sure. I definitely
two
get
different modes
competitive.
though.
Yeah. Oh, totally different.
Like such different modes.
Like the
Such different
mindsets,
modes.
your vibe, your entire like processing changes, I feel like.
Yeah, yeah. It's like different personalities underwater.
So true. All the different chapters. So tell us a little bit about when you went to go get dive instructor certified.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So this is a silly story. Because I'm just like, Google free dive instructor training. Who comes up? FII. Free Divers Instruction International. Oh, cool. There's one on the Big Island in the spring, in between my seasons. Like, I'll just pop over there. The water's gonna be warm. This looks dope. Apply. Um, guy
Good for
emails
you,
me
by the way.
back. I mean,
Amazing.
it just talk about a healthy ego. Uh, so yeah, whatever. I got this. It's fine. I'm like, it's a week. I can get there in a week, you know? I really didn't know what to expect other than I really thought I was going to go over there and come back with the gold badge. So Martin, Martin Stepanek, who, if you don't know this name, is a world record holding freediver, man dives over 400 feet. I should have Googled him when
Holy
he
crap.
emailed me back because he's the instructor, also the founder of the school. So naive to the freediving world, dude. Spearfishing and freediving are not the same thing.
Mm-mm.
But I didn't really, and actually I didn't learn this at all until I got there. And I was with an amazing crew of folks who all but one that was like their second go around. Because as I found out also upon my arrival is like typically people don't pass on their first attempt. And I'm like,
Gosh.
oh, oh,
Why not?
interesting. Yeah.
You must all suck. Just kidding.
What's wrong with you guys? No, they were obviously like, they knew their stuff. They were so sweet, like the day before, and they're all tripping at me and my confidence level of coming on the scene, being like a spear fisherman and not a free diver. Katie, I've never dove on a line before.
Oh.
Have you?
Have you? Yeah. Well, I dove on a line when I got certified. Did you get
Okay.
certified?
So I only was pool certified. I
Oh.
never did the open ocean part
Oh,
because I got certified
dang.
like in the PNW. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, man. See, I got certified in Cabo, and we had like a line right next to the arches, and it was really rough and it was miserable.
Oh,
And I was like, I got to do
oh,
this. I can't back out. That was not fun for me. But anyway,
yeah.
continue.
So not only am I, training to dive on the line, but I'm training to instruct people to dive on a line.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. So these sweethearts that I'm in the class with, they took me out and they're like, Jen, you've never dove on a line. They're freaking out. They're like, let's get you on a line, girl. I'm like, okay, cool. Boom. 60 feet. No problem. They're all like, wow, good
Yeah.
job. And I'm like,
Practicing being instructors.
thanks. Yeah. I was honestly, I was feeling good. I'm like,
Yeah.
cool. Diving online.
Awesome.
Also, I wasn't, I'm not under the scope of Mr. Martin yet. I'm not staying consistently with the line. I'm just making it to the bottom. And then I hung out and they're like, hello,
You need to come
like,
up.
what are you doing? I was like, I'm chilling down here. What do you mean? Like, we get down and we check some stuff out. And they're like, no, you come up now.
Very different mentality.
Oh gosh, yeah, I was such a kook. Um, so the first out the gate, dude, out the gate, they put you through hell. Was the freediving like advanced safety course. Seas were pretty rough. The water was not that blue. It was cold for Hawaii, but we get out there and I'm just like, all right, day one, here we go. I'm going to give it all I got. Um, and everything was fine. Like I was having fun with the drills. It was all good until the last drill we did. You had to get somebody goes to 60 feet and because you're putting yourself in the mind of an instructor, right? Who's teaching somebody. So let's say your student went to 60 feet and they're like kind of freaking out and they wave at you and you're like, oh, okay, so you got to go down, bring them up. And then it was as if, maybe I'm saying this wrong, but you bring somebody up from 60 feet and then you circle. You do this like crazy circle around to simulate as if you're swimming somebody to the beach. and you're holding that, you're protecting their airway, you're keeping their head out of water, and you're calling for help. You're telling them to breathe and you're calling for help, or maybe
So
you're acting like you're giving them,
So you've dove 60 foot, you've brought somebody up from there, then you're holding their head out of the water. You're talking to them, you're calling out loud while you're swimming with the body that's probably not helping you swim a
yeah,
certain distance. So that sounds really exhausting, just to be clear. That sounds very difficult
that
in
part's
itself.
tiring.
Yeah.
That part's tiring. You do that for a few minutes, and then you get, as soon as you're done with that, you have, boom, clock starts. You have a 2-minute break. You breathe up, you chill the fuck out. You've just been through 5 minutes of absolute hell of trying to saving somebody's life. And then the next drill is that you go down, somebody's down there again. You go down to 30 feet. You turn yourself upright. And when you turn yourself upright, you're like, yeah, I'm going to the fucking surface now. No, 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 no. Then you have to turn yourself back around and go get that person.
Why?
Because it's just the absolute work. Like this is why it's the best instruction in the world. This is why his school is so incredible, is because you don't get certified as an instructor unless you
can put yourself through the ringer.
You're the dude who is going to save lives and is going to keep everybody safe. And, isn't messing around. You can't tire one of these people out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I could not complete that task. I just
That's
couldn't.
interesting. Like, do you think having to, okay, so when you're freediving, when you're spearfishing, for example, or freediving, whatever, when you dive and you stop going down, that takes a pretty significant amount of energy. Like,
Mhm.
you stop your momentum, you stop your descent. And so then you go upright. And then, but to have to like dive down again, I can't say I've ever tried that. That sounds hard. Do you have to
It's
wave your arms around to do that? Because normally, you guys, when you're freediving, you're not really using your arms, which is why we can carry spear guns.
Yeah, totally. So you have the line, you can use the line to turn your body
Reorient.
upside down, but it's against every natural instinct that we have. And what it is, it's like, did I have enough oxygen in my lungs? Did I have the athletic ability to do it? Probably, but I could not get past just the voices in
mental
my head, or
barrier.
like the mental barrier of it. I
It's the
just
hardest part. There's no doubt
couldn't
about
do
it in
it.
my mind. The mental barrier is so significant
Then
in
you lose
freediving.
your ego and you lose your drive and you question everything and you tell yourself you're not good enough and you're not going to make it. And guess what? You're not.
Yeah, that's not how it works. Yeah, you don't get to talk to yourself that way and be successful in freediving. No,
No,
unfortunately not.
no.
Oh
But
gosh.
so our swim in, Martin, I had tears in my eyes.
Of
Because
course.
I was like, oh my God, I thought I was going to be able to do this. And I don't think that I can, and I humbly kind of in our swim in, I was like, Martin, I'm, so grateful to be here, but I don't think I'm cut out for this. And this guy, he's like, I don't think you know that yet. It's too early to tell. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're going to put me through hell for a week and I'm going to have to try to get over this.
My bruised ego now.
My bruised ego, my lack of confidence, my realization that I'm out of my depths because I'm not a free diver. I don't
Yeah.
dive on a line. This is so weird. What a concept. And you're just like, you're going on, you're turning back up. But so I don't know. All that to say, yes, of course, I was incredibly humbled by this experience, but damn, did I get the safety aspect that I was going for? Did I
There you
get brushed
go.
on my skills? Did I get hella educated on all of the things that I attempted to answer your questions about earlier?
Did so good.
Thank you. And do I feel more confident being in the water as a protector? for my friends and my spouse? And do I also feel free to rattle off some information even though I don't have my gold star? Like, absolutely. So,
Well, good for
uh,
you. So you stayed through the whole week, right?
I stayed through the whole week, and then, and I endured Perrin hitting me up, calling me, a line kook, and that it was sick offshore and that I should come spearfishing with him. I like turned down these incredible
Oh,
opportunities but I stuck with it,
good
and
for you. That would be
it
hard.
was, it was an act of, just a commitment that I made to myself, and I wanted to see it through.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
wanted to see it through.
you really put yourself outside of your comfort zone on that. And
Way out there.
like really way out there. And then not only did you fly over to Hawaii to do this thing, but then, everything that ensued afterwards. So, I think that the growth, it's no shock to me that you grew exponentially from the experience despite not getting what you're calling your gold star, which I think you have anyway, Jen. But yeah, it's no surprise to me that this was a huge experience for you. What what are your thoughts on like the importance of putting yourself outside of your comfort zone in controlled spaces?
Mhm. I mean, it's everything. I mean, yeah, sure. I think about everything we're talking about, like freediving, but at the same time, as an entrepreneur, I think that part of my drive and commitment to like do hard things that I'm really uncomfortable with, like that experience of freediving. I mean, I went into my next work season just lit up. I was just like, whoa, I did such a hard thing, and I stuck with this uncomfortable situation and endured like being out of my comfort zone for a week. Um, and just doing that like is so much self growth, and it's so expansive, not only like for our spirits and our bodies, but like
Yeah.
our
Mm-hmm.
heads too, to like stick with something that it's like, okay, even to know, like, I don't know what's going to happen at the end of this week, but I made a commitment to myself, so I'm going to follow through with that. Um, there's something about that I've fully have carried over and into all aspects of my life, and has made me, I don't know if it's made me a better person, but it's I like being in this skin that knows that I did that, and that I can do that.
Yes.
Um and I can do that
Yeah.
in other things too.
And like to build on that also, like the growth you experience, I think you make a promise, you make a commitment to yourself. But also your brain you're constantly like in my experiences of putting myself outside of my comfort zone, which I've done a lot of lately, and I'm kind of glad that I'm in my comfort zone right now. To be fair, I was kind of getting over it. So,
You got to
but like
recharge. You got to recharge.
the I think I might have lost you. I'm not sure. So let me just mark
You're
this. Are you there?
fuzzy, but
Okay.
yeah, the time is still
That's okay.
going. I don't know
You're
if
good.
okay. Okay.
You're good. Okay. So, in my experience of putting myself outside my comfort zone, like you make to be able to stick through to the end despite um despite the difficulties, because there are so many difficulties, because you made this commitment to you and potentially to other people, you're also constantly like for me personally, I am constantly hearing these words of doubt and this negative side of myself very consistently in this process, and having
Hmm.
to face that, face that part of me and fight that part of me, and have my like the positive side, the positive person on my shoulder, to really like turn down the negative side of me, the negative person on my shoulder, and to grow to become a better person. I think that that's to be a stronger person, to get through the moment, to get through that difficult time, to get through that challenge, whatever it might be. I think that really builds an extreme amount of character. And I think that like you said, like, I mean, it would be impossible not to have that shine into all of the different aspects of your life. Like there's so much to say, and that's pretty much exactly what you said. Now, do you have a hard stop at 1:30, because it's 1:30?
We can keep going. The doggies have a groomer appointment at 2, but
Okay. Well, here, we'll just wrap it up. The doggies are they're so great.
we can go for like 10 more minutes before I really need to
Perfect.
get out the door.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, well, I want to hear a little bit about I want to hear a little bit more about like your life as an entrepreneur, because you've done some really incredible stuff. You guys, you can find Jen. Tell our guests where they can find you and the work that you've done.
Great question. So, like I said, I'm really heavy in the wedding space these days. My Instagram for wedding photography is Jen Jones Weddings. I also have a photo booth company that I run out of vintage Volkswagen buses, which is the Photo Bus Co. Photo with an F. And
I'll
then just
tag
like
those below, but you guys, I'm interrupting you, Jen.
No, go.
This rock star has taken these old Volkswagen buses and upcycled, converted them into photo booths. You know, you go into like a wedding and they have the like photo booth section with the fun glasses and the backdrop or whatever. Well, Jen's done that, but she put it on wheels in Volkswagen buses, and it's insane and it's so cool. Where do you have those? Where are those located?
Well, I won't go too long into this, but I had 5 of them. 3 of them are in the Pacific Northwest. 2 of them were in Florida until this last hurricane season.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
I lost 2 of my babies, but I retained them for salvage. They're in a new home and they're getting rebuilt. They're not going to die in a junkyard. Someone is reviving them. So I've really, as a collector, I've now come full circle.
Good for you.
I've gotten them for incredible prices and been the one that like, oh, you're the best home that they can go to. And now I'm like, I've let go of them for super cheap, just as someone who I know is going to take care of them and like put them back on the road.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. How cool though. I mean, terrible that happened.
Again, yeah. Character building, silver lining in devastation. But it's just, that's the thing. It's like, okay, we're going to have losses and we're going to have low points, but like, how fortunate am I to have lost 2 Volkswagens and, still have 3 others in my garage? Like, freaking pinch me, get over yourself, Jen. Like, you're so fortunate.
I love that mindset. Mindset. But so growing your businesses, we touched on at the beginning, like you and Wiley, both entrepreneurs, and have just hustled this, throughout your entire careers. And you're in a position now where you're very comfortable, and you've done an incredible job with that. What are some like words of advice or words of wisdom that you can give to young listeners out there, maybe listeners in their 20s that are looking to establish themselves, aren't sure what they want to do, but want to do something that is valuable to them and where they follow their passions? Like what are some words of advice or wisdom from you?
I think first and foremost, choosing something that you really love, that you're really passionate about, because when you are a young entrepreneur, not only are you, hustling for little gigs and everything else, but you're also, you don't have like an equipment budget built into your savings account yet. And so you're taking wads of cash. You're taking wads of cash and you're, buying a 50-year-old vehicle with it, or you're spending money on a bunch of money on like a new camera or lenses. And I will say that all of the money that I've spent on Volkswagen buses and camera gear, which is a lot. If the money was in my account, I was doing it, and I wasn't thinking about like, oh, well, do I have 6 months of savings in there too? Which first 6 months of savings, 10 grand, You need that emergency savings account, something that I didn't do until I was a little while on my journey, but have a buffer. Uh, I'm getting a real big sis here. But I'm saying like do something that you're passionate about because you're going to be spending a lot of money on it. And when you let go of that money, like money is energy. You should be so freaking thrilled to have handed over your wad of cash for whatever asset you've gotten in return, and so inspired that you're going to take this thing and you're going to make more money with it. I think that's kind of been, as I like reflect a little bit, kind of the secret sauce to how I've grown and expanded, because I haven't been afraid to take risks financially for things that I knew. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm betting on myself. Like,
Yes.
as long as I show up and do the things that in my head I'm telling myself I'm gonna do, then I'm not gonna lose, you
Yeah.
know? And like the photo bus is a great example of when I bought my second bus, just out of my obsession for how freaking cute these things are. I was like, oh shit, I better justify owning two of these money pits that I just love and I think are like so freaking cute. So I launched this business and I had no idea what it was going to do, how it was going to take off, that everybody was going to love it so much. And so
It's so
sometimes you get
cute.
lucky. Sometimes you get real lucky, but you know, you get in that position by putting in the sweat equity and the work. And yeah, just choose something that fires you up. And as
And
someone,
dive into it. And dive into it. Like when you find that thing that fires you up, like just go. Go all in. Like,
full circle, babe, like,
especially if you're
breathe up and
young.
get down there.
Yeah. Breathe up and get down. Just fucking dive. You don't need a buddy on that one. Just kidding.
No.
Buddy's
I
help.
mean, it'd be great if you did. I always wish. I'm like, oh, and I do in my partnership, and you with Drake too. It's just
Yeah.
like, yeah, there's somebody who is not. I mean, I try to get Wiley to come in on the photo bus co with me so hard, and he's like, no, babe, that's your thing. I'll help you out, but like that's yours.
Nope.
But
That's
not
funny.
only not only a partnership, but also to have friends like Katie, you to like, for me to know that you're out there on a fucking boat in some body of water recording your podcast and like hosting like fishing contests and wrangling in like 400-pound fish, just like you're chasing your dreams and you're doing it, girl. And
I
I feel like
appreciate
to
you.
surround yourself by other people who are passionate and motivated and not afraid to lose, you know, going after their dreams is going to inspire you to keep it going.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
And you can talk to each other about your woes. And even if you're in totally different industries, like you're going to have things to share and bounce off each other. That's going to keep pushing the needle forward. So
Exactly. No, I mean, I always enjoy talking to you. I know today we really nerded out on freediving, which I really, really enjoyed. Really enjoyed.
me too.
But
Me
we
too.
nerd out on everything everything there is to nerd out on. From
We go deep. We go
we
deep.
go deep. We go 80-foot deep, yo.
In
Sorry, that
conversation,
was
we're more at
so
like
bad.
150, I bet.
Truth bomb.
It's true. It's
But
true.
like, I don't know, surrounding yourself with people that are like-minded. I mean, so I touched on how Jen was the photographer for our wedding, and she flew all the way out to Lanzarote to photograph us, and it was just such a priority for me, just because
Oh,
you as a human are able to see and match my wild, Drake's wild, what we really value in our surroundings, in our relationships, in ourselves, in our relationship with each other. Like, you were just such a perfect fit, and the work you did to showcase our love was just so exceptional, and I'm so grateful for that. And the fact that you're this sensational wedding photographer that is also just this ocean loving badass, I just feel so blessed to have you in my space and to have you as a friend and a sister. I feel very, very lucky. So Jen, I really appreciate you sitting with us. Um, tell me, tell me what it is for you that keeps you coming back to the water.
The ocean calls me, baby. I don't know.
See the line where the sky meets the sea. It calls me.
It's so funny. You know, there's like all these bumper stickers that say like, "Oh, the mountains are calling," or "The mountains call me." I'm always like, the mountains don't call me. They don't call me, but the sea blows my ass up. I just can't get enough of her.
She's pretty amazing. She's
Yeah,
pretty amazing. I love that.
yeah.
All right, cool. Well, Jen, you told us your wedding page, you told us the photo bus page. Where else can our listeners find you? I'll tag below as well. Let us know.
Love it. You can put my personal Instagram on there too. That's where I'm posting my fish pics and doggo media.
So cute. I love that. I love that. I love that one you have pinned with your fin up in the air. I'm like, oh, that's so Jen. And you took those beautiful photos of Kimmy and I underwater when I like didn't even know to take my snorkel out of my mouth. Like this was such a
that
so much fun.
Photo of Kimmy showing you her gun and you, the prolific fisherwoman that you are. Yes, now spear fisherwoman too, but fishing woman that you are down there and looking at the gun. I'm just like, it's such a, well, obviously I was there and it was moving. But still, I love that we have that for that moment, because it's just such a worlds colliding. Like, Katie, no, like you need to get in the water, girl. Like you what?
That was amazing. Yeah. And I just love that your passion shows through all of your work, all of your photography work, from weddings to underwater to at the beach to the coastline to diving, all the things. Like, it's amazing. And I love it. I love it so much. Well, Jen, thank you so much for your time. Do you have any parting words for our listeners?
Oh my goodness. Well, if you made it this far, what up? We must be friends. And yeah, if you and your love are getting hitched in some beautiful far off destination, hit me up. I'd love to be there.
She's amazing, you guys. Shoot her a DM, say hi, let her know that you listened, and that you if you have any thoughts on the podcast, comment below. We really, really appreciate it. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe. If this podcast spoke to you, to any of your girlies out there that you want to share this with, it's all about fostering strong female relationships in this space. But boys, we love you too, obviously. And really appreciate you, Jen. Have a freaking fabulous day, and good luck with the doggos.
Thanks, babe. Talk to you soon. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye.
And that's a wrap. If you enjoyed this chat, please feel free to share. If you're watching on YouTube, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. As always, don't stop chasing your wild, and we'll be seeing you out there.